In southwest England is the inland county of Wiltshire, a county where the modern meets the ancient, and I mean ancient. But hill forts and henges aside, what are its prettiest towns? To establish this, I've visited them more personally, and my conclusions are presented to you in this top 10 list. As per the rules of this series, cities are included for consideration, which adds one to the pool. However, villages are not, which means no Castlecombe, Laycock or Avebury, for instance. But believe me, whittling this down to just 10 was hard enough in a county such as this one. Oh, and also featuring in this video is one of the most unusual sights I've ever encountered on a British high street, and that's no exaggeration. But enough of the preamble, let's get to it. Number 10. Getting us started is the spa town that nearly was, Melksham. Straddled between the Cotswolds and the North Wessex Downs, this was once a thriving wool-producing town before the Industrial Revolution changed the game. During the Regency era, an ambitious plan was put forward by textile merchants here to turn this into a spa town to rival the nearby city of Bath, following the discovery of two natural springs here. The plan fell through in the end, but the mid-19th century town hall, in all its ashlar stone Italianate glory, is testament to Melksham's ability to dust itself off and persevere, much like in 1985 when its railway station reopened after Richard Beeching had ordered its closure in the 60s. Brunel's ghost would approve. Number 9. Next is the site of one of Alfred the Great's hunting lodges, Chippenham. Being located just a short distance off the M4, connecting it to London, Bristol and South Wales, not to mention Brunel's Great Western Railway cutting right through the town centre, you might expect Chippenham to have abandoned its historic heart and replaced it with commuter urban sprawl. However, that particular burden seems to have instead been absorbed mostly eastwards towards the Hill of Pigs, if you know your old English. Purists may argue that Chippenham features a few too many chain shops, but packed out as the town is with listed buildings, these big brands seem to take residence on its terms, rather than the other way round. Number 8. Now for one of a few curveballs in this list, as we head to Swindon, the borough of Swindon that is, where you'll find the small town of Highworth. In all honesty, it's a mystery to me how such a well-preserved town just sits here in all its Georgian splendour, in complete contrast to its big neighbour that's home to the infamous magic roundabout, but here we are all the same. The medieval parish church of St Michael and All Angels keeps a watchful eye over the market square, just as it's done for centuries, leaving nothing but the cars on the road to serve as a reminder of which century you're actually in. Number 7. Staying on the outskirts of Swindon, our next entry is none other than the first town on the Thames, Cricklade. Yes, the river that's seemingly associated with London above all others does in fact have its origins in southwest England, and this clear ankle-deep stream is indeed Old Father Thames himself, just not as he may have seen before. But the contrasts don't end there, as Cricklade, being the famous river's most upstream town, bears about as little resemblance to the capital, or the estuary towns of Kent and Essex, as you could likely conceive. You'll find no skyscrapers modelled on ridiculous inanimate objects here. Instead, a high street decked out with a fine array of Georgian brick and limestone is the order of the day in this town that proudly boasts its Saxon roots. Number 6. Next up is a town with one of the widest high streets in the country, and allegedly the widest south of Stockton-on-Tees, Marlborough. Set against the backdrop of the North Wessex Downs, with the clear waters of the River Kennet flowing through on their way to Reading, the natural surroundings alone help to set this apart from other towns. However, it was a particular mishap that was largely responsible for its street layout, that being the 1653 Great Fire of Marlborough. After over 200 houses went up in flames, the high street was widened in the rebuilding as a precautionary measure against future infernos claiming similar damage. This has left the town of today with a pleasingly cohesive architectural motif, although the use of the extraordinarily wide high street as a car park is bound to divide opinions. Number 5. And speaking of potentially dividing opinions, here comes another curveball as we head to Salisbury. If you're wondering why I include cities for consideration in these videos, well, here's an illustrative case. Salisbury would be a medium-sized town if not for its cathedral, and being as it's a particularly popular tourist spot within Wiltshire, its visual merits warrant a discussion. This was the city that was built from scratch in the 13th century after the Bishop of Old Sarum shot an arrow in the direction of where he wanted the new cathedral to be, so the legend goes at least. The cathedral would go on to become England's tallest, although it had to wait a couple of centuries before claiming this title, since Lincoln and Old St Paul's were both taller before their respective spires were destroyed. Is it the finest cathedral in the country? Quite possibly. All it's missing is a bit more visibility throughout the city, as per York and Durham, for instance. A surprise in itself considering its height. The rest of Salisbury contains some fine historic buildings, however these feel somewhat scattered at random amidst the busy streets, both on the traffic and pedestrian fronts, with a constant under construction feel in parts. Am I being hypercritical? Probably, but I believe 5th place speaks more to the strength of Wiltshire as a whole, as I shall attempt to demonstrate with the remaining 4 entries. Number 4. Just like Salisbury, our next entry is also situated along the River Avon. A different River Avon though. Bradford-on-Avon. And while we're on the subject of namesakes, this is a town that shares a link to the historic wool trade with Bradford in West Yorkshire. The similarity ends there though, as the Bradford we're looking at never progressed beyond watermills, while the North and Midlands literally steamed ahead. But it's said riverside mills that are integral to the town's overall aesthetic of today, albeit repurposed. The stone houses set upon the steep incline of the winding streets leading out from the river lend a certain south of France vibe to the town, just with fewer baguettes under the arms of the locals. But there's one specific building that's of immeasurable importance, and you're looking at it. This is St Lawrence's Church, and it may not appear like anything special at first, until you discover who built it. The Saxons. HistoricEngland.org.uk claims it dates from the 10th century, with other authorities suggesting it could be as old as 8th century. Either way, to think that prayers of deliverance from the Vikings may well have come from within these walls is humbling to say the least. Number 3. Now we head to the far south of the county, and to a town with one of the most unassuming names in England. Mere. Being the smallest town on this list, with less than 3,000 residents, its name is all the more fitting, and the small town charm is strong here with its winding streets converging on this clock tower that's understated by Victorian standards. The adjacent Castle Street showcases a blend of stonemasonry styles from Stuart to Victorian, while the medieval parish church is a masterclass of perpendicular Gothic, complete with 4 majestic pinnacles atop its tower. But the real pinnacle is actually a short walk away. Castle Hill, where a fortification once stood, provides 360 degrees of views as far as the eye can see, so you can gaze upon Mere in its entirety, and beyond into Dorset and even Somerset. But Alex, that's cheating, I hear you protest. This video's supposed to be about Wiltshire only, after all, right? Perhaps, but should I really downgrade this town accordingly on a mere technicality? Pun intended. I think not. In fact, here's a bonus clip looking north across the West Wiltshire Downs. Number 2. Our runner-up is a town that's said to be the oldest borough in England, Malmesbury. To fully grasp the scope of the history we're dealing with here, let me put it into perspective. As a continuous settlement, Malmesbury is roughly twice as old as Salisbury. It's still just a nipper compared to Stonehenge, but that's another story. Malmesbury Abbey was founded in the 7th century, and after its 12th century rebuilding, it featured a tower and spire exceeding that of Salisbury Cathedral in height. That was until the 15th century, when it was blown off in a storm. There's a pattern emerging here, isn't there? Allegedly, the limestone recovered was recycled into the Market Cross. Whether true or not, Tudor poet John Leyland describes this as, quote, curiously vaulted for poor market folks to stand dry when rain cometh, unquote. As for the rest of the town, its streets are filled with a slew of historic buildings from the Abbey to the River Avon, the Bradford on Avon that is. Likewise, the riverside here is populated with old watermills converted into flats. In short, this is a town so well put together that it scarcely feels the need to brag about its location on the fringe of the Cotswolds. Number 1. Finally, the top spot goes to a town noted for some of its inhabitants of particularly fine plumage. What on earth am I talking about? All will be revealed as I present to you Corsham. If any of this looks familiar, it may be that you recognise it from the recent-ish adaptation of Poldark, where it features as Ross Poldark's local market town in 18th century Cornwall, and it's not hard to see why it was chosen, considering it's home to over 400 listed buildings, with hardly any which would be anachronistic to the reign of George III. Put simply, there isn't another high street like this one in the country, where each edifice seemingly attempts to outdo its neighbour, be it of rubble stone, ashlar stone, painted in warm pastel colours, or left to the natural honey-tinged hues of the quarries that helped to make the nearby city of Bath so famous. And just when you think you've seen it all, out pops a local resident, strutting his stuff on this same high street. No, you're not tripping. On account of Corsham Court, an Elizabethan manor next to the parish church, you may just bump into the famous Corsham peacocks popping into the town centre should you pay a visit. Need I say more? On that colourful note, we conclude this list of prettiest towns/cities in Wiltshire. Do you agree or disagree with my picks? By all means, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to catch up with other counties covered in this series so far, check out the link on the screen now. Thanks for watching and have a great day.